No company could ever benefit from pressure stifling the potential talent of its greatest asset, its people. The largest and most prominent of companies need to be increasingly proactive when it comes to managing the pressure that its employees experience and the performance of the organization as a whole. GlaxoSmithKline is one of the pharmaceutical industry leaders. Headquartered in the UK and with operations based in the US, the company has 6.3% of the world's pharmaceutical market. GSK has a leadership position in anti-infectives, respiratory and vaccines, and has a growing portfolio of oncology products. The company also has a consumer healthcare portfolio comprising over-the-counter medicines, oral care products and nutritional healthcare drinks, all of which are among the market leaders. GSK cares about the impact it has on the people and places touched by its mission, to improve the quality of human life by enabling people to do more, feel better and live longer. In response to this, GlaxoSmithKline has successfully been running a pioneering approach to managing health for optimum performance. Most notably, the approach was recognized as a beacon of excellence in stress prevention in the workplace by the HSE in 2003 and awarded the Personnel Today Health at Work Award in 2005, as well as being recognized by the Prince's Trust's International Business Leaders Forum as a leader in the field of stress management.
We've focused on probably one of the greatest risks that all businesses have, and that's mental ill health. We have looked at and have seen that the amount of impact, both in terms of productivity and in terms of actual money spent by businesses and societies on mental ill health, is tremendous. And as a result, we've put together a set of tools that are targeting both the organization and the individual to understand what is driving the pressures that people face and how.
There are two sides to akathisia. One is outer visible restlessness that you can observe, but the other, much more important one, is an extraordinary state of terror inside a person. Psychiatric drugs were used by the Soviet Union in the Gulag, large doses of them, to induce this side effect. And it was a form of torture. And if you talk to patients, it is torture. You can have mild, moderate, or severe restlessness, but this inner subjective agitation has been described as abject terror, anxiety, tension. That's what you heard Kim describing Woody with his hands to his head, saying he didn't know what was going on in him. Patients have described it to me and in the literature as being like listening to nails scratching on a blackboard 24/7, or your bones rattling like tuning forks. And it's this inner agitation that's by far the most severe, the most dangerous. It's been described, this is a quote from 1958, ladies and gentlemen, more difficult to endure than any of the symptoms for which patients were originally treated with the drugs. It's been described as behavioral toxicity of antidepressants. This is SSRIs, 1992, after the FDA hearing in 1991. And the way that suicidality emerges in this picture is one of two ways. For some patients, suicide becomes a way of escaping this side effect, literally, like death would be a welcome relief. And for other patients, it seems that as part of the syndrome, they actually develop an obsessive preoccupation with suicide. And I've talked to people who lived to describe this. The most vulnerable time period has been known in the literature for decades, early in treatment. FDA doesn't disagree with that now. And it's distinctly different from the suicidality of depression. When people get this side effect, they will tell you they want to kill themselves to escape this severe inner agitation. They feel like jumping out of their skin. They feel like jumping off a building. They feel like jumping off a roof or hanging themselves. When people are depressed, they're hopeless, helpless, worthless, and that's what they'll tell you they want to escape. It looks totally different, and the pharmaceutical companies and the FDA saying, well, how could you ever tell this apart from depression, is just completely misleading. We know how to treat akathisia. We understand the brain chemistry of why it's more likely to occur with SSRIs. Primary care doctors who write 70% of prescriptions for antidepressants know almost nothing about this side effect, and FDA is still not educating them. I'll show you that a little further along. And akathisia can in turn cause most of the other side effects on the FDA's list of the side effects that make people worse. For example, worsening insomnia. Akathisia makes people profoundly anxious. It can make them quite paranoid. In the mid-90s, again, my historical march, you get up to 1994, and the test case went to trial. It was in Louisville, Kentucky. It was the man who used an AK-47 automatic rifle to kill 8 people, wound 12 others, and then a handgun to kill himself. Lilly appeared to win a jury verdict in 1994. In actual fact, several years later, through the heroism of the judge in the case fighting Lilly, it turned out that Lilly had secretly settled the case, and the verdict was later changed to dismissed as settled. All of this is spelled out in Prozac Backlash and other publications on this. Testimony in the West Becker trial said that data was massaged by Lilly, that sedatives were heavily used to offset this anxiety and agitation, that when people became suicidal, Lilly coded it as depression. We now know that GlaxoSmithKline coded it as emotional lability, which is like being very emotional, kind of crying one minute and laughing the next. You have people like Dr. Peter Brigham in 1994 publishing Talking Back to Prozac and revealing a lot of this. My book came out in 2000. Dr. Healy, as was said earlier, has published numerous books and articles. The one I'm highlighting here is his landmark study in 2000 of healthy volunteers on Zoloft, where I believe it's 10% of them became suicidal. These were healthy volunteers, dismissing the pharmaceutical argument that, well, it's just depression. This is clearly described in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, since 2000. Here's other textbooks, including American Psychiatric Association textbook of psychopharmacology, clearly describing SSRIs causing akathisia and akathisia making people suicidal. More textbooks that I'm just going to flip through, but to give you a feel for it, this has not come out of the blue. This has been well known for years and years, and FDA has not taken adequate protection. There have been lawsuits, many, many lawsuits, secretly settled. It's a shame that we are discussing this issue with so many of the documents still confidential. We're only able to talk to you about the documents that have become public in the few cases where the lawyers were able to make that happen, either because they went to trial or because they used legal means to try and force some of the documents out. But it's a crime that we are discussing this without all the documents being public, given the public health and safety issues involved. In those suits, experts for the pharmaceutical industry have acknowledged that akathisia is a risk factor for suicide. Look at the data on that, 2000, well before the FDA's next hearing in 2004. Here's another expert for Pfizer. In 2001, we had the landmark Tobin case in Wyoming. This was a murder-suicide, a man who went on Paxil within days murdered his wife, his daughter, his granddaughter, and then committed suicide. The only one in the family who survived was his son-in-law. He brought a lawsuit, and it was an $8 million jury verdict. It was the first jury verdict that got a lot of documents into the public record, as had the West Becker trial. Come up to 2002, 2003, the development